Okay, well, welcome to my rainy Sunday morning, y'all. I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison on the Super Cub versus the Trail Cub, Hunter Cub, CT125, goes by many names. The first thing that struck me riding at home 80 miles from the dealer was the seat feels more comfortable on the trail. And it looks bigger in the pictures. Pardon my 360 cam here. I'm doing that so I can get multiple angles. I don't have my chest rig on today. In the pictures it looks longer, but I think we're going to measure it here in just a second and find out that it's the same. There's a profile difference. This is, you know, curved forward a little bit, kind of beveled, where that one is more flat, straight up and down because of that rear rack. So maybe that's why it feels longer, because the seat area, you can see, you know, when I press in on it here, it dips down right here, so it's got a dish that comes up in the back. That one's a little more flat, so maybe that's the difference. I don't know. I'm going to measure it. It looks a little taller in the front, too. It's more squared profile, so I'll drag the tape measure out in a second. You know, obvious differences are, you know, cast aluminum wheels versus spoked on the Trail Cub. The motor is pretty much the same, but I've noticed a couple of extra sensors, it looks like, on the jug on that one. You can't tell, no? This is the one that I was curious about. This looks like a cylinder head temperature there. The Trail Cub also has the same sensor. It's just more prevalent, and they've got a different shroud around it. So yeah, essentially these are the same motor. We just have a different final drive ratio. 3 teeth larger on the rear, which gives it more acceleration, lower top speed. Rear disc brake, obviously, on the Trail. A drum on the Super Cub. But I think everything else is the same. In fact, the rotors and the caliper are probably the same unit. I haven't verified the part numbers. Obviously, it's black versus silver for this, but we've just got a single pot up here, which I'm going to upgrade later. ABS front disc and ring. Yeah, same setup. I think it's identical pieces. Look, no, we got a dual pot up here. Interesting. I didn't notice that before. Hey, you learn something every day, right? So this looks like a dual pot front caliper. That's great. The Super Cub only has a single pot. And then obviously a single pot rear. So I'll probably put stainless braided lines front and rear on both bikes. You know, a front only on that, but front and rear on this one. I just need to find a split line kit for ABS models. I haven't found that yet. So anyway, back to the differences. It's pretty much the same thing. It looks like the heel toe shifter has a slightly different shape. Yeah. And obviously it's raised up on my Super Cub here because I got tired of trying to activate it with my heel. And pardon me while I wipe off my camera lenses here. It's rainy today. I'm doing a tent test. A new tent that I got in the backyard over there. I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but I'm torture testing that thing, leaving it out here in the rain. We've already gotten about 2.5 inches of rain this morning, and there's supposed to be more coming today. So anyway, where was I? Other differences, obviously the shocks are different. This has got exposed springs, and I think they have a little bit more throw than the ones on the Cub. I'll throw the specs up on the screen here. So yeah, it's just a little bit more suspension travel on both, and I don't know if this is a full fork. I haven't really done the research yet. I think this is probably just a shroud. The forks on the Super Cub stub out right there, and then it's got a long steering neck, no triple tree, so to speak, where this appears to have a little bit more of a traditional triple tree arrangement. But again, there's a little bit more suspension throw on front and rear for the Trail Cub. I've got a cable hanging loose here, sorry. So, what else? What else? I've added the oil temperature gauge on my Super Cub just so I could keep track of how it was doing on my hard highway runs. I'm not nice to my bikes. The side cover is different on the Cub. It has a sight glass and, you know, just different aesthetic here. No oil fill right here, and obviously no Kickstarter. So the Super Cub, where the sight glass is pretty much where the Kickstarter is on the Trail. It's machined a little differently, embossed differently, obviously, but you know, the outer clutch cover, fake little gasket thing here, or whatever, it's kind of loose. I might have to pad that to avoid vibrations. So yeah, we got a dipstick here for checking your oil level, and then obviously the fill up top. So a little different. Kickstart works great. I've used it a couple times. It's not hard to kick, but you have to give it a good full rotation to kick it over. I short kicked it a couple times and it didn't start. That was my fault, not the bike's. What else? Obviously, the handlebars are different. My bar end mirrors are folded in right now, so it kind of distorts the view, but the Cub's bars are narrower. I'll do the measurements in just a second. I'm guessing those are probably 3 inches wider, maybe 4, and definitely higher up. They've got a different bend to them, so they're sitting up higher and they're angled a bit more and they're further out. So I haven't decided which is a more comfortable riding position yet. I've gotten so accustomed to the Cub, this is just different, not better or worse, it's just different. I don't like the grips that come on the CT125. They're very hard, and even with gloves on, they just, I don't know, they feel a little odd to me with this big waffling here. So I'm gonna yank those off of there and put some, what are they, the Pro Grip 714s, I think, that I've got on several of my other bikes. They're really good. What else? Differences, similarities, differences, obviously. Booyah! Look at this monster chunky rack. We're going to measure that one in a minute too. It is huge. It's just so big. The Cub didn't come with a rack at all. The Honda OEM rack was about that long front to back. It was really not useful in my opinion. And I had a whole lot of problems with mine. I'll link that video here. The welding jig on the OEM rack, the Honda rack, had this rear tab in and tilted at about a 20-degree angle, and it cut into my fender paint. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can still see it. It's right there. Chopped up my fender. And this fender has gone up now. It's over 450 bucks. Youch. So I put the Kijima on here. We'll try to link that video as well. This setup has just been great. I like the way it looks on the bike, even when I don't have gear loaded on it. It just kind of matches the flow and the look of the machine. It's just a great setup right there. The Kijima rear rack and side supports. I've gotten 3,000 miles of good use out of those already on the road, carrying my gear. Okay, so that's all the similarities and differences that I can come up with off the top of my head. Oh, whoop, save one more. This guy gets a gear indicator. You have a gear position indicator on the Super Cub. The Trail 125 does not. I'm gonna save my 5 likes and hates video for a later time, but I'll tell you that one's gonna be on the top of my list for the hates on the Trail 125. No gear position indicator, and I don't like that display, but we'll leave that for later. The Super Cubs, I think, is just more functional. It looks prettier, obviously, because this is more of a road bike than, you know, off-road rough and tumble. So, anyway, let's get to the measuring. I'm going to try to do this, probably do it without the handheld camera here, and that way I can just shine it back, the results back to this guy. Okay, so let's go tip to tip on the handlebars at the widest point. And I have 31 and a quarter inches on my super precision caliper here. So 31 and a quarter inches tip to tip from this point to this point. And that's not measuring the width of the mirrors. If we want overall width, yeah, that's going to be the wider point. The bars are actually slightly wider than the mirrors are. No, it's almost dead on, sorry. The mirrors are 31 and a half wide, but if you look at it from the rear, the bar ends actually stick out a tiny bit further than these do, so it's just a difference in perspective. But, so yeah. Sure I'm not missing anything. Yep. So we've got 31 and a quarter, and now let's compare that to the Cub Obviously, my bar ends are different than factory, but if I'm just measuring from the bar ends themselves, these are actually a ½ inch thinner on each side than the factory rounded bullet bar ends. So whatever my measurements are here are pretty close to factory if I don't factor in the width of the mirror hanging out here. So I will get this. Oh yeah, I mean, it's a huge difference. So I have got 27 inches exactly at the widest point of the bars here. So there's my 27-inch caliper point. Much different. This is 4 inches narrower with the factory bar end bullet shaped on there. They stick out a ½ inch to 3/4 inch more. So even that wouldn't even be 28.5, 29 inches at most. So the Trail Cub is at least 3 inches wider on the handlebars. Now, height-wise, they're both on the center stands right now. They're both sitting on flat level ground, so I'm going to measure from ground to the top of the bars. Get a few measurements here so we understand what we're dealing with seating position-wise. I've got 40.25 inches height. Sorry. 40.25. All right, and that's height from ground while on the center stand. And this guy is exactly 43. So, yeah, I can't hang on to it. 43. So, a couple inches taller. Couple 3. All right, so let's measure foot peg height from ground. Give us another metric to work with. On the CT, we've got 13.75 to the top of the foot peg, 13.75 inches. On the Super Cub, we have 12.25, so about an inch or so difference. And just to measure the rider triangle with my super precise equipment that I've got here, we're going to go from the top of the foot peg to the top outer edge of the handlebar. If I can get the tape measure to cooperate with me. So from the top middle of the foot peg to the top outer edge of the handlebar is 29.75 inches. If I can get that thing to sit there. Play fair, be nice. Yes, 29.75 inches is that position, 29.75. And now we're going to measure from the top outer, exactly the same measurement, to the rear of the seat. That'll give me a good point. I can adjust it later, figure out how the manufacturer does it. I think they do the center of the seat, but whatever. We're going to go to the back edge of the stitching just to have a consistent measurement point. So, I'm going to go back center edge. Sorry for obscuring your view. Back center, right there, right at the stitching. Bars need to be straight, don't they? That's about as straight as I can go. I'll measure both sides and average the distance. So top forward edge is 28.5 inches that direction. Let's do the same here without bumping the bike. It's the exact same point. And I'm looking at 28.5 inches. So 28.5 inches from the center of the ground of the seat here at the rear of the stitching forward. So there are our measurement points. That's the triangle for the Super Cub. Now let's do the same thing on the trail. Get this about as centered as I can see it. So we're going to do the center of the peg to the forward edge of the bar, which is a little weird because this bar is swept rearward, so that's going to kind of confuse our triangle measurement there a little bit. But I've got 30.75 inches. So 30.75 for the triangle portion of the front edge. Let's do the same from the stitching at the back of the seat to the forward edge of that handlebar. I've got 29 inches. 29 inches there. Same point. 28 and a half. Yeah, so the bars are a little off. So I've got 28 3/4 to the outer front edge of the bars, but remember these are swept further back. If I wanted to be a little more precise, it's going to be hard to know exactly what the steering head is on that because it's not exposed, but front to back distance to the steering stem, we're going to measure from the same point to the center of the steering stem, and that is 27 and a half. So 27.5 inches back of the seat to the center of the steering stem. I'm just going to guesstimate where the steering stem is on this. It's going to be right here. So at the lower center of the speedometer. Yeah, they're almost the exact same distance from the back edge of the seat. This one was 27 1/4. So the triangle differences are just due to these bars being more rear swept. Let me wipe you off. All right, so side-on view, you can see that there's not much of a dip in this. It's almost flat. It has a very slight curve right here, but not much. And then that top view that I was talking about a minute ago, it's very triangular. Sorry for all the water, might distort the view, but it's very triangular in its shape. Whereas the Super Cub is more teardrop shaped. So it widens out more in this part of the seat, several inches forward. I would say at the rear third is where the widest portion is, versus all the way at the back for this one due to that triangular shape. So the side-on view of this one, you can see the dish kind of starts about right there. So it's about 2 to 3 inches forward of the rear, where on this one it's just right here at the back. So I think this gives a little bit flatter of a seating profile. You can see that it's a little wider through this section as well. It's thicker right here. And that does raise the seated height. I'm a short-legged guy. I've got a 29 and a half, 30-inch inseam. So while seated on this thing, I can only ball of the foot on one side and tippy toe on the other. So it's about a 32-inch seat height, where the Super Cub is inch and a half or so lower than that, but it's a little narrower in this section that lets you get your feet down more. You've got an additional leg bow here because of the airbox, or the intake section, and the seat profile. So it's a little taller, but again, this is a small bike and it's so light, 260 something pounds. I'll throw that statistic up on the screen. It's not hard to manage. This is a very light bike. Oh, handlebars. So I got to shut this. I'll show this, and then I got to shut this camera down and use two hands. So you can tell from this position, the handlebar angle is a little more rearward swept on both sides, and it's wider, obviously, and taller than the Super Cub. The Super Cub is a very flat, low, traditional hand position for Super Cubs, more road oriented than off-road oriented. Although I'll get into that with my other gripes later. These bars are nowhere near tall enough to stand, and ride off-road. So most off-road riding, you're going to be up off of the seat because you don't want to get beat to death by the rear suspension. It also helps the bike absorb bumps because your fat butt isn't weighting it down. You get to use your knees and ankles as shock absorbers. Okay, so I'll get the other camera going here, give us another perspective. So let me illustrate, without actually riding the bike, why the factory position on the heel-toe shifter is a problem for me. We have two cameras looking at this. That one's going to give a better straight-on view of it. while I'm riding, if I want to put the ball of my foot, or you know, kind of the shank of the boot on the peg, my heel is resting right here on the shifter, and that is a problem because it disengages the clutch slightly and makes the clutch slip. And the same goes for the toe. My toe is kind of slightly resting right there. It's just, you know, my height, my ankle angle, if there's a proper term for that, I don't know. It's just not working out. Now I'll show you the same thing on the Super Cub in just a moment. But by rotating this heel portion up, it's actually less in my way than where it is now, because it forces me to not have my boot resting on it. I just butt my heel right up against it, and it's higher by about 1.5 inches. And it also makes the shift easier, and that's the big problem here. Let's see if I can get this camera to work. The problem while I'm in my normal riding position is this. If I need to activate that shift, my heel doesn't go down far enough. I've got to move my foot way back here, and still that was activating it. So it's too low. My ankle doesn't bend at an acute angle like that. So it doesn't work for me. But that's a very easy fix. So what we do is we just take out this little 10mm bolt right here. I'll link that video here if I still have any link cards left in the video. Take out this little 10mm bolt. You got to pull it all the way out because there's an indentation in the shaft. You slide the shifter out, which might be a problem on this. I'll find out today. I'll do that today. It's going to be very tight. There's not much clearance between the end of that shift yoke and the foot peg bracket. Anyway, you pull that out. You just rotate the splines, or the shifter on the splines, 1 notch. You could go 2, but that'll raise it pretty high. But 1 notch is sufficient to get that thing up out of the way. And it makes toe down shifting easier because your foot is already down here at this angle, and it's closer. It's an easier motion to point your foot than it is to crank your ankle backwards. So anyway, I'll try to get it with this other camera here. Let me clean you off again. It's quite wet today. And I'm sure somebody's probably going to say it in the comments, so I'll head you off with the pass. Why am I doing this in the rain? Why not? I'm already doing a tent test over there in the rain. I'm not nice to my bikes. I use them in all weather. So now, that camera won't see it, but we can see it on this handheld cam. You can see how much higher the shifter is on the Super Cub because I rotated it 1 spline. That's just 1 spline there, I think. Might be 2. I'll verify in my previous video. But that is a good position for me, and let me show you why. I wish I had a second tripod. So, from here, ooh, that seat's wet now as my butt is soaking because I don't have waterproof pants on. So, in my normal riding position, that right there is the shank of the boot. So it just rests right in the cup. That's a perfect spot, and my toe is pointed slightly down, but I'm not into the shifter. There's still slack between my boot and the shifter, so I'm not resting on it. And my heel can't depress this guy because it's up high. It works so much better that way. So when I need to shift, I just slightly raise my heel. That's full extension right there. That's it. So that's a normal position. And my ankle is at a very slightly acute angle right there. Maybe, I don't know, what, 80 degrees? It's just slightly past square. So that's a normal motion. And then to downshift, you're just pointing your toe. That's it. Super easy. So this is a much better position. So anybody that owns a Super Cub or a Trail Cub, if you're having trouble working that heel shift, then just do the shift rotation on that thing. 1 spline. Super easy. Takes you 5 minutes or less. So what else can we talk about? I think that's about it. I'm noticing that profile looks a little different on this too. Hey, yeah, there's another one from my difference book. This one is got sharper angles on it than the other one does because it needs to clear that foot peg assembly. So what else can we talk about? Anything? What do we got? They're both a whole heck of a lot of fun. I've had quite a few people saying, you know, I bought it just for style or whatever. No, I got it for a specific reason, a niche. I like it because it's light. It's going to be a fantastic little trail bike for me. Yes, it's a bit underpowered at only 8 horsepower and change, maybe 8.5. But you don't need a lot of power when you're out on the trails doing gravel riding, forestry roads, that sort of thing. Everybody's hung up on this, I need 100 horsepower to go anywhere. You'd be surprised. You're selling yourself short, and you're cutting down on your own adventure and fun possibilities by not considering a smaller machine. When you're out on the trail, having a lower horsepower bike is actually a benefit in a lot of cases for several reasons. One, they weigh a whole lot less. Two, they're simpler. Three, not having all that horsepower, you don't have to worry about the back end getting out from underneath you or getting in over your head with speed. You can wring these things out and still stay well within a safety envelope to prevent injuries. With your heavier bikes, you've got so much potential for injury out on the trail and in the woods and doing things, because the bike is heavy and it's going to go down. It's inevitable. Eventually you're going to put it down, and if you're under that thing, it's going to smash you. Breakage on heavy machines is much higher than smaller ones because of the weight. It's simple physics. The heavier something is, the more mass, more kinetic energy it has in motion, and that energy has to go somewhere when it crashes, and that usually ends up in broken parts or broken people. So anyway, I won't preach anymore. We'll get off the soapbox, but I got this for trail riding. I've got a Yamaha XT250 that is kind of in the same genre, lightweight ADV bike, or dual purpose, dual sport bike. It's not a great highway machine, neither is this. I don't have any I'm not disillusioned in that fact. I know exactly what they're capable of, and that's the important factor here, is knowing what the bike is capable of and having the right expectations. If it needs more power, you can do a big bore kit or something like that. Obviously that's more expense, more complexity, potentially less reliability, but these motors are very detuned from Honda anyway. They last forever, so increasing compression slightly or putting a slightly larger piston in it, you're not going to stress that bottom end. The clutch might take a little bit more abuse, but still, you're only dealing with 12 horsepower now, maybe. It's not like a race machine. So anyway, they're both fantastic machines. I have no regrets in purchasing or owning either one of them. They're just fantastic. They've got different intentions. This is a road bike. Anybody that takes it off-road is just begging for trouble. The tires are not suited for it. The wheels are not suited for it. The plastics are definitely not suited for it. You drop this thing once and you're looking at, $250 for that leg shield plus whatever else you bang up, and then all the labor to tear it apart and put it together. I've already taken that leg shield off. I don't recommend it unless you're serious. This guy, if you scuff it, bang it up, it's just character. You got some plastics on the sides, big deal. Put some hand guards on there. Anyway, so that's my quick overview today of the similarities and differences between the SuperCub 125 and the Trail Cub 125. And I'm going to be getting these back out on the road very soon. This one has seen plenty of road miles. That one has only got about 100 miles on the clock right now. Going to go up by the thousands very soon. Catch y'all later.